the previous panelists have dwelt on this particular subject. One is you need standard protocols, you need certainly analytics, and there are many and diagnosis is a very important part. Primary healthcare therefore plays a very important part in diagnosis, and we also have been running these e-large clinics, which are e-primary health clinics, which are capturing data, diagnosing patients. But I go back to another point. Why is it that we don't have it all sort of figured out properly? Because we are now having a discussion which is basically comparing a lot of schemes that are operating in many states. And I can tell you, even though you've all talked about this model and that model, let me tell you, I actually happen to be Devi Shetty's partner in that hospital. And one of the biggest challenges we have is that we are not even able to come to terms with what should be the optimal price that we charge for these heart surgeries. The government is being very one-sided in terms of what it expects. But I can tell you these rates that the government expects are not viable. And moreover, I think we are also finding it extremely challenging because payments are not coming in a timely manner. So I think there's a lot of thinking to be done around this healthcare model. I still believe it's a very important game-changing reform that is urgently required, because right to healthcare is going to be extremely important for a country like India, because they say that health itself can contribute 1.5% to GDP. So loss of productive life is extremely important for us to safeguard against. And I really wish we could all, put our heads together and come up with that optimal model. I still don't find enough consultation with the key stakeholders.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming that that's the job of the Niti Aayog, and that's what they ought to be doing at this point in time. But Sandeep, pick up on the point that Kiran was making, and I think it's echoing in the conversation that we're having on how do you ensure that this is viable? At what price is it going to be viable and sustainable for the private sector to actually ensure that they continue to participate? As the CEO of Cigna TTK Health Insurance, Sandeep, I mean, we've talked about whether we should have a standard treatment protocol, what it will mean in terms of pricing, etc. But address the concern that Kiran has raised here.
So let me start with a couple of things. If I were to, we've done some work in terms of trying to figure out what kind of premiums we think we should be able to charge for a scheme like this. And I think the numbers that we've been throwing around 2,500 rupees to 3,000 rupees for a family is something that is potentially achievable. Now, there are a couple of different aspects that are part of this scheme that we really have to look at, right? One is pre-existing conditions, right? So pre-existing conditions are covered from day one. Now, if we do not have a system to be able to manage pre-existing conditions and appropriately, take care of them, eventually people are going to be ending up in the hospital from an incident rate perspective. India is sort of in a cusp of, communicable and non-communicable diseases kind of playing simultaneously together. So how do we actually manage the pre-existing condition aspect when it comes to this kind of model? So when you're talking purely cost, 2,500 to 3,000, is that doable? I believe it is. I think we can get there. Can we get to 1,200? A challenge from our perspective, at least we're looking at what we have today. I just wanted to make a point that the government introduced a two-part program here, right? They actually had this scheme where they wanted the insurance to happen, but they also introduced this area of 150,000 or 150,000 clinics, health and wellness clinics that they want to put out there.
Clinics, yes.
Now, if we take that and can we integrate that somehow down the road or immediately in terms of an offering? And again, when we're looking at gatekeeping, access to care, so when individuals have access to care, if they have clinics that they can go to where they get diagnosed and a lot of the basic care is actually given at the clinics before they actually end up in the hospital, these are ways to contain costs, ways to deliver better care and effectively be able to deliver lower premiums.